Option pending, pending continue to show, terminated, withdrawn, coming soon. What does it all mean and what is going on behind the scenes of all of the statuses of the Houston Association of Realtors MLS? My name is Mariam Hejazi. I've been helping people buy and sell residential real estate for over 12 years and I have been loving Houston since 1987. Let's get into it. All of these statuses, I know for some of you it's elementary, and of course, you are absolutely an expert in what all of these statuses mean. But if you're not, let's run through them and let me tell you what could be going on behind at the scenes of all of these status changes. So, coming soon. Now, I think the public can see coming soon. When it was first rolled out with the HAR MLS, only agents could see coming soon. And if an agent puts a property in coming soon status, that means that it is going to hit the market as active very soon. You have to hit active on your listing within 21 days of listing a property coming soon. I have found out this the hard way. If I have a listing that is coming soon, but we're not quite ready to show it, sometimes I'll put it in the coming soon status so people can at least lay eyes on it and it will generate a little bit of interest. Now, per MLS guidelines, we are technically as agents not allowed to show the property to other agents in the coming soon status. And again, you have 21 days from the day you put it in coming soon to the day that the MLS will manually make it go active in 21 days. So active is just that. It is a house that is on the market that is currently not under contract. And just because it is marked as active doesn't actually mean that it's not under contract because per MLS regulations, agents have 3 days to change the status of the property. So if a buyer and a seller come to an agreement on a property on a Friday, technically that agent does not have to change the status until Saturday, Sunday, Monday afternoon. So they could go all the way through the weekend in active status and not be breaking any MLS rules. So if you see a property that's active and you are actively searching, you need to ask your agent to call the listing agent or text and say, hey, my buyer loves 123 Main Street. I'm just making sure. Are you working with any contracts? My buyer is super interested, just so you know what competition you could possibly be up against. So, option pending. This means that the buyer and the seller have come to an agreement and they have signed on the same contract. They have executed. Earnest money and option fee has most likely been delivered to title company, and the buyer is exercising their right to inspect the property or have estimates done, and the buyer will have an unrestricted right to terminate during their option period. And this amount of days is blank in the contract because everything is negotiable in Texas, including option period days. And option period is synonymous with inspection period as well. So option period is when the buyer is having the property inspected, and technically they will have the unrestricted right to terminate during this time window. And typically in a normal market, we see 8 to 10 days for option period. For a larger and more complex property, let's say the property has stucco or it has a well, a septic system, or it's very large and will take some time to have it inspected, you might see something like 14 or 15 days, but 2 weeks of an unrestricted right to terminate is a long time for a seller to agree. So option period, we could definitely see the contract fall through during this time window. Now, when we go from option period or option pending to pending continue to show, this means that the buyer is technically not, actually, it will mean two things. They're technically not in their option period anymore, and they technically do not have the right to the unrestricted right to terminate, Or it could mean that they are in their option period, but the sellers have elected to still entertain showings, which is their legal right to do so. A seller can still show the property while it's under contract. Now, when we go from pending continue to show to pending, this means that the buyer no longer has the unrestricted right to terminate, and highly likely their financing contingency has expired. The financing contingency is the days set forth in the third party financing addendum. This is the total amount of days that the buyer and their lender have to finalize the buyer's financing. So when you see a property go from pending continue to show to pending, it has a way higher likelihood of actually making it to the closing table and that little red sold tag that you'll see on the MLS. Now, we are seeing a lot of sales fall through right now in the fall of 2025 and late summer of 2025. I think June of 2025, we saw the highest amount of contract cancellations that we have seen in years. And the reason is people are getting laid off, people are losing their jobs, they are finding out unexpected news, unexpected financial news. So we are seeing a much higher likelihood of a contract falling out once it goes even through all the way through pending continue to show. So still keep an eye on a property, even if it's under contract. If you love it, have your agent reach out to the listing agent and ask them, hey, how is this contract going? Do you think it may fall through? Should you accept a backup offer? What are our chances of possibly getting it in case the buyer decides to terminate? Now, this, in my opinion, actually is a double-edged sword because as a buyer, you are going to be very interested in a property that perhaps you've lost out on and is still under contract. If you submit a backup offer, that's great. And there's a high likelihood that you could get it if it falls through. But the listing agent could use this as a negotiation tactic with the buyer that they're currently under contract with. If that buyer that's currently under contract tries to wiggle around too much on repairs and requests, that listing agent may use your backup offer as ammunition to say, hey, send me the termination, or no, we already have a backup offer. You'll either move forward or terminate. So it could be used as ammunition for with the buyer that they're currently under contract, or it could really work in your favor and you could get an amazing property even though another buyer already has it. In a normal transaction, usually financed, the timeline is closer to like 30 to 35 days. It takes about the 30-day time window to close a financed loan. If you have an incredible lender who I have several that I would like take a bullet for, they can close you in 10 to 14 days. If you have cash, you can close in 7 days or less sometimes. It depends on how ready the property is, how ready the seller is, and how able your title company is. So so let's say we go from active to option pending to sold, it typically you're looking at anywhere from like 21 to 35 days. This is a pretty normal time window. Now, a more complex deal, or if the buyer or seller need much more time, you could realistically see 45 to 65 days. Now, 60 plus days is a very long time for a residential deal to be under contract. There are so many things that can change in a 60-day time period in the residential market. So a good set of agents will try to abbreviate as much as possible the time from under contract to closed. So sold or closed is when the buyer and the seller sign their closing documents and the loan or the transaction is funded if you're using cash. So once we move from pending to sold/closed, it's done. You cannot have the property anymore. There's no backup offers. until the property comes back on the market. So it's sold, finito. And when we go to closing, closing and funding are wings of the same bird, but they are slightly separate from each other. So we could close on a property, but funding will not occur until closing. So we sign all the closing documents. So buyer and seller, they sign their closing documents. Then these documents either go to the lender and they are checked and verified, and a final stamp of approval is stamped on the closing documents from the lender, and then the loan is funded. And then that is when the bank sends the money to the title company, and the title company disperses it to the seller, and we have a closed and funded transaction, and ownership has officially transferred from seller to buyer. Now, there are a few other statuses that are not visible to the public but are visible to your agent, such as private per seller, withdrawn, terminated and expireds, the public can see, but private per seller and withdrawns, I do not believe the public can see. So your agent can see. So private per seller came out a couple years ago, and this function allows a house to go on the market and be like silently marketed on the MLS. So an agent can put a house on the market, private per seller, and it is not visible to the public, and they don't even have to put a price. Now, each time I look at private per seller in all of the Houston MLS, typically I'm only seeing like 30 to 100 listings that are private per seller. And the reasoning of a seller to put their house only on PPS or private per seller is the reasoning is vast. Some people are truly not ready to sell, but they want to put their house on the market just in case somebody comes along and it's the perfect product. Some people that want to maintain uber privacy put their houses on PPS. There recently was an incredible River Oaks historic estate that I had the opportunity to tour with Preservation Houston. It was on the market private per seller for 15 million, and either today or yesterday, it officially went from private per seller to active, which means now the public can officially see it listed. So that seller probably just wanted to see what they could get done off market, just in case there was the right buyer. Now they've moved from private per seller to active, and now the whole world can see their unbelievably beautifully restored historic property in River Oaks proper. So withdrawn, this means a seller has been on the market and for some reason they need a pause. They're pausing. This means they could be out of town and they don't want to bother with showings. This means it could be the holidays and they don't want to bother with showings. It could mean, especially if you see it go from active to option pending and then option pending to withdrawn and then back to active, it could mean that the buyer's inspection yielded some unexpected results, and it could mean that they have withdrawn the house to perform some much needed work like plumbing or a new roof. Perhaps they're doing some excavation. It just means that the seller needs to pause on the market time. Terminated, this means for some reason the seller needs to terminate their listing, and the termination occurs before the end of the agent and the seller's listing agreement. And this could happen for a million reasons. It could happen, somebody decided they weren't going to move, somebody lost the job that they were moving for, somebody had a change in family circumstance. Somebody couldn't get the price that they wanted. Somebody had a falling out with their seller or their agent. You just never know. And then expired. This means that this house was on the market for the duration of their listing agreement, anywhere from 30 to 180 or 365 days, and it never sold. It just expired. And this means that at this moment in time, the buyer or the seller and the seller's agent have decided to not extend the listing agreement and allow the house to expire on the MLS. And this could also mean that the seller is willing to sell, but their listing just expired. And perhaps they need to change the price or they need to change the condition because we, of course, cannot change the location. And so if a house that you have had an eye on has expired and it's gone off the market, ask your agent to reach out to that agent and see, is that seller still willing to entertain an offer even though the house has expired? And for that matter, if there's a house that you really love and it expired 2 or 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago, there is a big, big chance that that seller may still want to sell, and you could have your agent reach out to an expired listing that catches your eye, and we could put together an off-market deal. You just never know until you present a seller with a complete and fully written offer and proof of funds or proof of financing. You just never know. So I would encourage you to try, especially in this market that we find ourselves in early fall of 2025. Houston is really trending as a buyer's market right now. There are still pockets of town where there is a seller's market, but there is a lot of opportunity in this market right now, especially for a well-qualified buyer looking for a deal. So you never know. If you found this video helpful on all of the statuses of the Houston Association of Realtors MLS, and you're looking for an amazing agent, I would love the opportunity to have a chance to earn your business. Please reach out, schedule a Zoom call, text, or email, and I would be happy and honored to assist. And again, my name is Mariam Hejazi. I've been helping people buy and sell residential real estate for over 12 years, and I have been loving Houston since 1987. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.